Mhm. It's been a really interesting day. It's the 31st of April, 2024, and it is 37 years ago tomorrow morning that I was a widowed mum with two babies. And it was really, really interesting because I felt really inclined to jump on and just really speak to something that's happening right now as a result of me listening to Diary of a CEO. I'll put the guy, it's Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, and he's talking to some really, really big popular podcaster that I've never heard of before. They're two young guys, and they have sparked me to come and do this conversation, to do this live stream because they are speaking so radically, authentically, and deeply. And I really crave that in my life, that level of authenticity and rawness and honesty and integrity, which comes from learning conscious communication. They spoke about how to have the vocabulary, that the happiest people are the ones that have this vocabulary. And I was thinking, well, or yeah, a larger vocabulary. And I've always thought I don't have a big vocabulary, but what I do have is the ability now, having learned and I teach also conscious communication, so that I'm actually accessing the frequency of the word that I'm choosing. And this is where standards comes in. This is where standards come in. It's like, how much am I willing to be an authentic, raw, honest human being? And it is so much easier now as I approach 63 next week to when I was a widow 37 years ago. Can hardly believe it. And I was 25 and I had a son who was just about to turn 4, and I had a 5-month-old baby who had been very, very, very seriously ill on a life support machine whilst my young husband was having chemotherapy. It was a very challenging time, and my son, who was nearly 4, was being passed around people, family members, even somebody, from the estate I was living on that I didn't know, who was a councillor, worked for the Labour Council or something, he was an MP. Even, like, his family looked after my son, like, we with the my family life was ruined. So today, ironically, I didn't realise that today was the eve of when Steve died. And so when I went to a yoga class this morning, and it's the first time I have been to a yoga class, I like, because I teach yoga and I've been doing it forever, like, not yoga. I'm so bored with with vinyasa. Oh God, I'm so bored with vinyasa. But getting so much older, suddenly, like, you see, and I was in this class today with this young teacher, and I've been very judgmental, critical. I've noticed this judgment about needing to be more compassionate for people who haven't got the experience in stuff. Like, there's standards and then there's compassion and there's kindness. And I've been really noticing this part of me who's been really this week, more so this week, has been feeling this edge of some frequency that is not sad or alone or um, depressed or envious or any of those things, because this woman who's about to turn 63 is actually the most embodied she's ever been in her life. She's the happiest, most content, sleeping the deepest, eating the best food, adoring her body by doing weights and yoga and Pilates and teaching people she loves teaching, and having fun with her sister, sitting in the sun having coffee after the yoga class. Wow, that was what she used to do when the kids were little, and she's built a business, and it's like suddenly she's, like, doing things that she could be doing if she was in the matrix, i.e. retired, and yet she still has a business that she loves and still creating a branding, and she's doing all of these things that she loves doing, and in her soul, she doesn't feel old, but her left hip has been hurting, and it's been getting stiff. And so instead of allowing herself to think, "Oh, I'm getting old now," and following the idea of how society teaches us we should be old, how society tells us that we're getting a pension and a free bus pass and free this and, "Oh, and you can have this and you can have that, and slowly you will wilt," because that's what we're programmed, and it's like, fuck that, you know? It's not even about growing old disgracefully, like, that actually upsets me when I hear growing old disgracefully, because actually, I want to grow old, grow old. I want to grow old gracefully, because for me, graceful is actually the disgraceful that the Matrix have lied to you about. And this is really the core of authentic relating, the core of yoga, the core of your sovereign self, the core of personal development, the core of spiritual development is actually all about remembering your true nature, remembering who you really are. And as these two guys, Stephen Bartlett and the other guy, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. I should have written it down before I came on. To to watch those two having such a radically honest discussion about what it means to be a human being, what it means, what is the truth when you peel away all of those different woundings, the childhood woundings, the divorce, the death of a parent, the birth of a child, the breakup of a loved one, you know, a romantic relationship. As we go through life, we build these protective layers over ourselves that began in childhood. And people get to 60 or 50 or 40 or 90 or whatever age they get to. And one day, hopefully, they might think, "Hmm, this isn't who I am. This is not who I am." And that happened for me before my second marriage broke up after 11 years. It happened to me, I was about 34, and I'd been married with the love of my life. After I'd been widowed, I met someone else again, and when this marriage or before this marriage broke down, we were living rock and roll lifestyle. We were music promoters. I booked Radiohead just before they became big. They came and played at the local venue that I was running with my ex-husband. And those days before I started learning how to uh, how to have my own business with all, I had this aerobics and yoga business, but I was combining my yoga life and my yoga world with drink and cannabis. And every night we would have a live music venue on the Friday night. I would go into work on the Saturday morning teaching yoga or teaching what aerobics or whatever I was teaching. And when I remember teaching step at one point, and I'd smoked so much the night before that I could not keep up with the class. I couldn't get on the step and get off the step. And that's how disconnected I was from me, from the real me. So what I was doing and what so many people do for so many decades until they are ready to become their true nature. And what they do, I just had a thought come in there, but I don't want to take this too heavy because I don't know what level of awareness anyone who listens to this, I don't know what level of awareness people have. I don't know what level of awareness people have because I always like to ask, you know, who is the one who is asking? Who is the one who is asking? But I know that at that time when my teaching of yoga and my nightclubbing and drinking, sometimes getting paralytic, were not merging. And I remember going to we had a big group of friends, a big social group, me and my husband, and I remember being in the pub, and he was a massive drinker, like serious big drinker, and all his friends were big drinkers. And I remember saying to a friend of mine who was also with her husband, and her husband was a big drinker, and I remember saying to her, "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. I don't even want to drink anymore." And yet I knew deep in me, inside of me, that if I was going to live this more of this yogi lifestyle, that I needed to make changes. And those changes happened over the following 20 years, less just under 20 years. So I was about 49, about 17 years, maybe 16 years. Those changes happened really, really slowly. And so that now, and this is from watching this conversation, this interview, this podcast with Stephen Bartlett and this other guy, whose name I can't remember, watching them, witnessing them having this deep conversation took me back to this morning when I went to this yoga class. And yesterday I filmed a video and I called it the um what did I call it about Pilates? The Pilates scam or the Pilates something or other. I can't remember, but it's the live stream I did yesterday. And I was quite critical. And 24 hours later, I booked myself in because I've committed to myself to do some exercise every day because my hip's getting stiff and it's working. Totally forgot what I was just saying. But what I was trying to say was that watching this video, this conversation with Stephen Bartlett and this other guy has reminded me, that's what I was saying, of this morning being in this yoga class with this woman who was in her early 30s teaching yoga and had a lovely voice for it, but she clearly wasn't very experienced, but she had a lovely energy that came through. And the whole time I was in the class, I noticed a few things, a few postures that I couldn't do like I used to be able to do. And that suddenly threw me because I then went into the last 30 years of my life. This is all in the yoga class. And I went into total reflection. I went totally within. And we went into namaste. We went into shavasana, and that's the first time I've been in a class for many years and done shavasana in a class. I teach it, but and as I lay there and these memories of 30 years, still not remembering that tomorrow is the anniversary of Steve, my first husband's death, I had literally had tears literally rolling down my face, just streaming out of my eyes. And this is at a time in my life when I am so happy and I'm so grateful for the wisdom and the learnings and the teachings that have come to me through so much desire and longing and passion to experience what it feels like to bring these separate parts of ourselves, i.e., ultimately the ego and the true self, and how that even when we've done loads of work, and this is what they were saying, and these are young guys, but it was so beautiful. They didn't say it like this is my way of saying it. But when and I would like to have gone deeper, but obviously it's a program. If anyone's still listening to this, you'll have a quite a deep philosophical mind. You'll understand, be with me. And some people it will just go over their heads. And I know that because I don't know many people that can go to the depths of where I go when I talk. I used to have some friends, but we're no longer connected. I had a few really good friends that I could really have like deep level, deep conversations. Most people now don't have time. And that's a whole 'nother topic about loneliness and alone, and that when you bring those 2 parts of you together, you will never, ever be lonely again. And if ever, ever you do, you have the awareness to know that that part of you is just longing for something. And you may give it a biscuit, you may go and cook some keto cookies, you may dance, you may do a Facebook Live, you may go and watch a television program, you might pour yourself a glass of wine and then another glass of wine, or you might go and sit and talk to your husband who is sort of fallen asleep on the sofa. Like, we are all constantly distracting ourselves, but not until you can actually, and this is not like what they were saying, this is what I'm really taking on to a to a deeper level in a way, is that until you have really met loneliness, like really met loneliness, whatever that looks like to you, you will never fully, fully, fully love being alone, because you need to know loneliness, like real loneliness, like not the sort of loneliness that you feel when you've broken up for someone and you're pining for them. Like, loneliness can just feel like, um, a feeling like there are not people there for you. You're on your own. Like, it's like you want to reach out for something, and yet aloneness and the frequency of really enjoying aloneness, and also the frequency of really allowing yourself to be true to you about how you feel. And that's where self-love starts to step in. That's how self-love starts to step in. Until you allow yourself to be fully, fully, fully you. And that's what I love assisting people in doing. Like, that's what I do in my mentorships and my coaching. That's what I love to do, is to support people in really finding not just the, I spoke about this with my sister today. We spoke about the difference, or I shared with her my thoughts on the difference between confidence and courage. And she shared a beautiful story with me, such a beautiful story. And I would like her permission to share that story. But she wouldn't have remembered that story, nor would she have shared that story if I hadn't opened up a pathway, because we were sitting in the sun. First time it's been sunny in England for, like, I can't remember when. And we sat in her garden after my yoga class and had coffee in the sun. And we spent an hour in her garden. And I induced open, authentic conversation. And she shared with me a story. I told her, this that you're a storyteller. She's a great storyteller, but this was another level of storytelling, and she wouldn't have noticed that she told the story, and the story was so profound about a time when she did something that she felt was out of her comfort zone, and she felt really courageous, and it wasn't about confidence, it was about allowing herself, really, like, encouraging herself to do something. And she felt so much courage for doing it, like, she felt amazing, and it's like, there's something around personal development and spiritual development that when you're actually going through something that feels uncomfortable, and you learn this on your journey, but when you're going through something that actually feels uncomfortable, whether it's loneliness or you're missing somebody, and I know for me, it took me years sometimes to get over breakups. Like, the pain, the pain, the pain. And maybe that's why I'm single now, because I would love to be in a conscious relationship. But there's probably much more healing with me to do around my relationships. And yet, and that's why I don't really believe that, I have the most amazing relationship with God, the most amazing relationship with myself, a relationship with myself that I could never, ever, ever have imagined was possible as a human being. And that, from the woman I was 36, 37, 36, my youngest is 37, I think. So it was 37 years ago. The woman I am today compared to the woman I was 37 years ago is speechless. Thank you for listening. I'm gonna close it there. Massive love. And if anyone actually does listen to this, let me know if it helped you in any way. But thank you for listening to the end. If you are here at the end, if anyone does listen to it, because I needed to speak all of this tonight. And I don't connect so much with so many deep friendships that I used to have. I've noticed in the last months, although I do have um, some amazing friends that can talk deep. People are busy with their lives at the moment. As you get older, if you're somebody who's done a lot of work, the sensitivity to when you have your deep conversations, you know that they will come at the right times. The need for pressure, the need for pulling people into your world, the need for not being a nuisance, but and by the same token, being open enough to dare to invite others into your world so that you know that the service is for them to see that actually it's okay. It's okay to be human. It's okay to show your true nature. Namaste.